Hey, welcome into the Husker247 Podcast. I'm Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson. Here on Tuesday morning, Matt Rule met with the Nebraska media already this week, and it is a big one with the Michigan game coming up. Did you sense anything different from Matt Rule, given that we're now into the conference play and that he was able to spend like at least a few hours in Vegas watching Bud Crawford win that fight? Did he seem like a changed man at all, Brian Christopherson?
I don't know. He did say that was the best sporting event he's ever been at, the Bud fight. And so that's saying something, considering as traveled as he is with the venues he's been to. So no, I didn't notice though his temperament or didn't see his right leg shaking behind the podium or anything just because it's Big Ten play. I think they're just trying to keep that even level. Like, all right, get a little bit better. Let's see where we're at now.
What about you, Brunson? You pick up anything? Have any reads in the room?
He seemed pretty chill, I thought, for the most part. My dog's also
decidedly unchill for the most part.
Yeah, just skip me.
Okay, we'll get Bruntz back in this podcast here shortly. BC, what's kind of your biggest takeaway from what you heard from Matt Rule here over on Monday? Sorry, just trying to get my bearings after Bruntz's dog just took him completely out of the podcast.
Yeah, Bruntz's dog got in our head. It's like where we have a scripted play on offense that all week we've talked about this is going to work, and then you just went backwards 5 yards on the first series. Yeah, sort of like that. So we just got to bounce back. We got to have a short memory, like a goldfish.
It's just a terrible display of mental toughness for me. A dog barks a couple times, and I'm just so rattled I can't even finish a sentence. All right, BC, take it home.
I like that he's stressing the items that need improvement that have sort of been right in front of our face. Cause I think this is going to be a game where all those little stuff that you've sort of gotten away with or haven't mattered could matter this week. For instance, don't kick the ball out of bounds in this game at all. Don't do that. I actually kind of hope they wave the hand and take the ball at the 25. I don't expect they're going to do it, but it's that sort of stuff I'm thinking about in a game like this, where that special teams stuff is, we feel good about it, but we're going to see how detailed they are against Michigan. And you don't want to have a drive where you get too bold on kick return or something. You get a penalty. You start it on your own 8-yard line, and then it ends up leading to Michigan points. It's that sort of stuff that's sort of in my head. And I like that. I think they're going over every little thing. And he said the team wasn't giddy or anything about the results the last 2 weeks. They shouldn't be. They should know who the competition was. But I do think he likes the maturity of this group and understanding you whooped up on some teams. You scored 113 points in a row. But you guys know it's got to be better. And if you stand in place, you're not going to win a lot of games in this league. And so I think that's known over there.
We welcome in Michael Bruntz yet again. Bruntz,
sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. What do you consider to be the biggest thing Nebraska gained out of these last 2 weeks? Playing against Houston Christian, playing against Akron, winning 68-0, winning 59-7. What do you think they gained the most as they head into this Michigan week and the start of Big Ten play for the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think confidence is a big one. After that game on Saturday against Houston Christian, Watson Trent kind of talked about, for him coming in from Georgia Southern, needing to get comfortable with just how things work here, getting more comfortable with the defense. And I think that's the value of those games, is just kind of getting everybody on the same page. I mean, with all due respect to Akron and Houston Christian, I mean, those were NFL preseason games, and everybody was getting on the same page. You were figuring out who could do what role-wise. I think there was more benefit for the defense in that game, in those two games, than there maybe was offensively, even though, the offense is clicking at a high level right now. So I think it feels like a much different team than the one that played at against Cincinnati. I think that's a good thing, because it just, in that game, especially on defense, it felt like a team that was almost kind of trying too hard. The angles weren't good. Tackling wasn't great. I know it's the first game, but it felt like a defense that was just kind of in its own head a little bit. And I think that's the value of these two games is you just went out there and played. Like you went out there and you dominated two teams that you were supposed to do. And, you did some things that'll probably help you too. I mean, that secondary seems like it's pretty legit. The competition is going to be much higher this week, but I think that's the value that you got out of those two games. And I think the defense probably benefited more than the offense did.
BC, how much do you think it matters that Nebraska's playing at home this weekend?
I think quite a bit, actually. I don't think it mattered in college football. I don't know if the home field advantage has been as meaningful as it used to be. I don't have the data on that, but it just feels like it doesn't impact it like it did at one point. But I think this week, this fan base is going to be loud and they're going to rally around this team, understanding it's been forever since they've beaten a ranked foe. There's an understanding that this is a big game for Matt Rule in year 3 and that whole narrative, and Dylan Raiola, and like he came here to build this program up. And I think they can impact this thing. Let's go back to Arrowhead. The fans helped Nebraska win that game. Like, there were big false start penalties throughout. And they can do that again on Saturday with the young quarterback with Bryce Underwood, who he might be up to it. He might not have any problem with it for all we know. But I think that there's a good chance this crowd can try to get in his head a little bit and try to disrupt their rhythm. And 5 yards on if taking a 3rd and 2 to a 3rd and 7 could make all the difference.
Brunts, what's the thing you're most confident about as it relates to Nebraska football heading into this game against Michigan? Or confident that they can take what they've done, some portion of in the 3 games, and continue it against Michigan this weekend?
I like their potential to be more efficient than what they've been the last 2 years offensively. I mean, I don't think that the 2 games that they played against Akron and Houston Christian are fool's gold by any means. Is Dylan Raiola going to complete 80% of his passes against Michigan? Probably not, but I feel like he can get Nebraska into better plays. I think he can take what Michigan's going to give him defensively, and they're going to disguise stuff. But I think he's a completely different quarterback this year. And I think that's probably been lost a little bit in the discussion nationally with him. How differently he's playing is not just the numbers, but his command of the offense. And I feel like that's something that gives me confidence that Nebraska is going to be able to do some things offensively against Michigan that they haven't done in the last few meetings, where they've just kind of looked outclassed with what they've done offensively.
What about you, Brian?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is going to be, and obviously it's a tougher team inside the 5 to 10 yard line, but can the offense finish in those moments? And I've loved what I've seen for the most part on offense, and the receivers I think have sort of lived up to their billing so far. Yes, we understand the competition, but even against Cincinnati, we saw like Isaiah Hunter made that play you have to make on the touchdown, and Dane Key ran the route where he shook the guy on the 4th down to score there. And so those are nice guys for Dylan to have, on that, maybe that money play that decides this game. But that's going to be the question when Nebraska does have that drive working and things are in rhythm and you're down at the 5 yard line. Are you going to punch it in this week? Because they've had 5 possessions this year inside the 6 where they've only had 6 points on those 5 possessions. And in 3 of those cases, they didn't score at all. And so obviously, 2 were against Akron early on, and, it was what it was. And then the other one I'd bring up is this one bugged Dana Holgerson in week 2. They had that Ja'Cory Barney punt return down to the 20 yard line. And I think that if you ask Dana, what's like your worst series of the year so far, he might point to that one and the 3 and out where they just had to kick the field goal after you get the ball in the 20. And that one comes to mind because there usually is a moment in a game like this where you create the turnover, you do something where you got the ball on Michigan's 38 yard line. That's got to be like where you strike and you find pay dirt. And so we'll see.
Brunts, do you think there's going to be more pressure on Nebraska's offensive line or Nebraska's defensive line in this game?
I think defensive line. I mean, I think you saw against Cincinnati. I mean, when you have a mobile quarterback, they can really give Nebraska issues. And Michigan, and it's still a top 15 rush offense. And as much as they have a dynamic quarterback from what they've maybe had in the last couple of years, I still think it's going to be similar to what we've seen from Michigan offensively. Like, I think you're going to get pre-snap window dressing. You're going to get a team that's going to try to run the ball at you. And I know that against Oklahoma, they tried to take the air out of the ball. They weren't successful doing that, but they have the ability to do that. And I think Nebraska's defensive line and that front seven is going to have to show Michigan that they can stop them in that game early on, or else it's just going to be, kind of what we've seen out of this series, the last few matchups, where Michigan just kind of does whatever it wants on the ground, bullies Nebraska a little bit. And so I think it's absolutely on the front seven defensively and that defensive line to show that they are, up to the task of getting in there and just kind of, doing having a 4-quarter fist fight with Michigan.
BT, are you just going to let Brunt say that JJ McCarthy wasn't dynamic at Michigan?
He was kissing his girlfriend on the sidelines. I guess that is pretty dynamic.
Look, when all you need to do is turn around and hand the ball off because you don't really have to be asked to do anything, you can be pretty dynamic. If occasionally you show that you can run the ball, and he did that there. I mean, was he not dynamic in the game against Nebraska in 23 when he knew their defensive signals?
Yeah, he was pretty good, and maybe did have an advantage. Remember they caught one off like the guy's helmet on the first drive. That was after Nebraska turned it over and play 1 or 2. But this is a different deal. I feel like when I go through the position groups in this game, Nebraska's even or has an advantage. Maybe you'd say Michigan on the D line has a little bit better advantage than Nebraska. But for the most part, it's pretty evenly spread to me on paper. And so this is a different beast than 2 years ago. And Nebraska, this is why the spread is basically even. Michigan a slight favorite. But I think Brutz is right. The D line has we're kind of curious about them. It's a curiosity game. Like, it's not like we're pessimistic that they can't get the job done. It's just like, okay, how is a group that has some young players, some of them in their first year in this program, some of them like Cade Petchak, who just got here in the summer as a college player, how do they do in their 4th college game at 2:30 on CBS against Michigan? I mean, that's a big ask, but that's also where, as much as we talk about the supposed weakness or the question mark of the defense, this is also where Nebraska's strength has to really flex. The DBs like Sierra and Andrew Marshall, can they take Michigan's wide receivers out of this game and make Michigan one-dimensional where they don't feel like they can get a lot done through the air? And so as much as we're wondering about the front for Nebraska, I want to see those guys deliver and be the dudes they think they are. And like, they're not going to hold them to under 100 passing yards necessarily, but make it a deal where they don't have many explosives there.
Brunt, I know you got to go, so we can just kind of finish up with this. BC mentioned Nebraska's secondary. What do you think their biggest strength is that Nebraska brings into this game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think based on results, I mean, I think it's the secondary. You hold 3 straight teams to under 70 yards passing. I mean, that's not nothing. And I think they've shown that they have the stickiness to run with guys. They're going to have to play, a lot of one-on-one, man-to-man on Michigan's wide receivers. And the one thing that we haven't seen a lot of are, teams, the 50-50 balls. Like, can they come down with a couple of those? Those would be huge in a game like this where Nebraska, for the most part, has won the turnover battle this year. They've won field position. I mean, they've done all of the little things that you have to do to win 1-score games and close football games, and they have to get a couple of those turnovers. And I think it's got to be the secondary that's going to do it. So I think based on the first 3 games, I would say that's the strength of this team. And I'm kind of eager to see what the starting lineup looks like. I mean, they went with Donovan Jones at corner last week when Sierra Wright moved into nickel with Hartzog out. It sounds like Hartzog's going to be back for this one. So do they go back with Wright on the outside, or do they mix and match things? That's going to be something to note, in that first defensive series. But I think the secondary is going to have to show up and have a big game and kind of try to make Michigan as one-dimensional as possible to give themselves a chance.
All right, Brunts, appreciate you joining us here this morning. He has to jump off to other obligations, but BC and I will happily bring this thing home. BC, Michigan was going to have an interim coach on Saturday. We don't have to dive into all of it with Sharon Morris, who chose to miss this game. He had to miss 2 games this year for self-imposed reasons. The NCAA tacked on a third that'll be the start of next season, but he chose specifically the Central Michigan game and the Nebraska game because he wanted to be able to coach against his alma mater in Oklahoma. Do you think there's any kind of advantage Nebraska gains without the head coach being on the sidelines here? Because Michigan, if any program is used to not having their head coach on the sidelines right now, it would be the Michigan Wolverines.
Yeah, Rule mentioned that the other day, slipped it in a line. They've done it before, which I thought it's true. It's true, and also a little funny. So I don't know. I would think it matters somewhat though, because as Rule said, I would hate to think like if you just took me out of the equation, it didn't mean anything. It would be like kind of a shot. So I think it does count for something. Obviously they've responded as a program really well in these situations, and they played well last week. I know it was against a bad team. So I think the jury's out on if it's going to matter or not. You got to go into it like it's not going to matter. Maybe. And this I don't think helps you a lot, because once you kick that ball off and the first play is run, I think if you want to talk about bulletin board material, it only goes so far. But Rule is a master motivator, I think. And I would mention it this week. Like, this is the game he picked to not be on the sideline. And you might run it back to the conversation of 2 years ago and what happened, and what did the other side know about what you were doing in that game, in an embarrassing game for you guys. I would put that in front of guys' face. I mean, that's the truth. And if the other side doesn't like it, they can be blind about it, but it did matter.
Yeah, no, I think it absolutely mattered. All right. Emmett Johnson is going to be a huge factor in this game for Nebraska as kind of their primary running back. I guess the question I kind of have, Brian, is, like we saw against Cincinnati, they rode him, I think, to the tune of 32 touches in that game. Do you think it could be a similar kind of thing against a Michigan team here, where obviously Nebraska felt like they had to check down a little bit with Cincinnati's defense? I don't know that Michigan will be exactly like that, but they were also comfortable riding out Emmett Johnson and letting him grind out the game a little bit between the tackles and getting him the ball in the flats. Do you perceive something similar could be in the works for Saturday, a high volume Emmett Johnson game?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially, I wouldn't say number 2 got cleared up over the last 2 weeks at running back.
No, I think it's muddier than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there was kind of that storyline a couple of weeks ago, like maybe we see sort of someone emerge. And honestly, Isaiah Mosey is like working in the slot now. I mean, I wouldn't even call him a running back at the moment. And so Quentin Ives, of course, got the second most. To your question, though, I think Emmett gets the ball 25 to 30 times in this game. I'd kind of be surprised if he didn't. I think Dana Holgerson has shown he really values him. And it's not just that he's good in pass pro and all that stuff. Of course, that matters. But he fumbled. He did fumble. But you go back to the Arrowhead game. Like, he takes a big hit where he gets sliced down on one of the last possessions. And in a big time game where everything's on the line, he hung on to it. And I think, you feel good about him, and he's reliable, even though he did have the one slip up near the goal line against Akron. So that's why I think it's just like his experience and your level of trust in him, knowing what he's supposed to do and how to take care of the ball.
I know these questions are like borderline impossible because I'm asking you to predict the future, but I just want you to kind of like give your best guess or the reasoning for why one over potentially any of the others. But if you had to pick between Nebraska's top 3 wide receivers and Barney, in Hunter, and then in Key, which one do you think can have the biggest impact? Or I guess phrased another way, which one do you think has to have the biggest impact in this game against Michigan? Is it Barney because he's playing multiple different roles? Is it Key because he's your steady veteran? Is it Hunter because maybe he's the most explosive?
Yeah.
Does it matter if one of the three goes off? Nebraska is going to be in a better place for it.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. I think Isaiah Hunter, though, I guess when you ask the question, my mind goes to Hunter. And the fact that of the three, he's the one, like, I don't think the other side is sleeping on him by any means, but there's so much attention about Dane Key and like how he came in with his experience from the SEC. And Dane Key's got to play a big game, no doubt about it. This is why he came here. But Isaiah Hunter, I thought in Kansas City, showed that he could be as good as anybody in that receiver room on some of those plays. You know, how he readjusted on that like 25-yarder and then the touchdown in the end zone. I don't know if Nebraska wins that game without Isaiah Hunter. And so
no, I don't think they do.
He had kind of a quiet week last week. Who cares? It was a 1.5 game for guys, and it ended up. I think it worked out well because Key got 100+ in that one. It kind of brought him back up after he was a little quieter the first 2 weeks. Everybody sort of got theirs now, and but Hunter's like the wild card to me as I think about it. Like I feel like he could be a tough matchup because there is so much focus on Key. Barney's going to cause issues. And Isaiah's just a good one-on-one receiver that I think this staff believes is going to win 50-50 balls. And if he wins the right one, the ones that Nebraska didn't win a season ago, Nebraska maybe wins this game. They're 1-0 in games like that because of Isaiah Hunter winning a 50-50 ball.
Yeah, no, that's hugely important. Let's kind of transition. We spent a lot of time talking ahead, Nebraska, Michigan. Let's go back a little bit. Some of the top stuff that came out of that game against Houston Christian, and let's just have this conversation. It's popped up on our message board. I'm not surprised that there's certainly some interest in seeing him play more because it's looked good against Akron and Houston Christian. Let's start with this. What are your thoughts initially of seeing TJ Lateef through those two games? And then do you anticipate this is a guy that Nebraska finds a way to work into a game even if Dylan is healthy?
To the last part, I don't think so, actually. I think he's like in the waiting room now where if it ends up being a deal where he is held to 4 games and you redshirt him, great. I don't think they're going to focus on that. They're going to play him if they have to play him. Yep. I don't know. His mobility is better than Ryla's, but I don't know if it's enough so yet based off the competition we've seen that you just bring him in for like 2 snaps because of it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure we're to that point. The thing I'll say, though, is I feel way better, and I think this fan base does, about the backup QB situation than I ever imagined I would in the spring. And we know who the competition was, but we've also watched football all our lives, not just Nebraska, but games where one team's up 38-7 going into the fourth quarter. They put in the backup QB, and basically you might as well just head to the exits because that's it. It ends up 38-14 or something. The team ahead does nothing, and the backup QB, it's like maybe it's because of their offense they're running. They're not giving them enough to do, but nothing happens. And this time it was fun to watch. Like, it was worth viewing the last quarters of these last 2 games. It really added to the experience, bad games that TJ Lateef was in. And was he 11 of 12? And he ran
he's missed one pass. Yeah.
And one that sailed on him to Carter Nelson early on. And since then it's been lights out. And I thought the ball to Mills was beautiful, the 62-yard touchdown. So I feel really good about him, and knock on wood, Dylan's going to be fine the whole year, but it's a tough game. And if you do have to go to your backup, TJ, at least I think he has that mentality, and the staff will say this, where he's preparing like he's the starter, and that's what you got to have there.
Yeah, I want to find the all 22 end zone angle of it, because I swear on that Cortez Mills pass, like, he senses that he's going to be open, but he doesn't rush that throw. He takes his time, picks a spot on the field, like checks his watch, shines his shoes, just like lets it fly, and it just drops perfectly. Like he dropped it in a bucket from 55 yards out into the awaiting hands of Cortez Mills. Like that was, I don't care who the competition was. That could have been against air. And it just, the level of just, it was almost carefree to the point of incredible to me that how that looked. And I don't want to overdo it, because I do want to say this. I don't see a scenario where Nebraska's got a better chance to win a game or score on a play if Dylan Raiola is on the sidelines in favor of TJ Lateef. So I just, I don't see any reason to try to do the Cade McNamara, JJ McCarthy thing from a few years ago, where Michigan would bring in, they did it in 2021 when they came in to play Nebraska. They would take McNamara off the field and have like a series to let JJ run around. I don't think you're going to see that from Nebraska. And I hope we don't see that from Nebraska, but I agree with you. I feel way better about their situation. I think it also just speaks to how well they have turned around a quarterback room that, you know what that looked like in 21 and 22 and 23, where Nebraska over the course of 3 years played Logan Smothers and Chubba Purdy and Jeff Sims and Heinrich Harburg all at the quarterback spot. And now it feels like it's a different class at the position. And that even extends into guys like Trey Taylor, the 2027 quarterback commit, Dayton Raiola, 2026. We know they're already bringing in guys for 28 and 29. Nebraska's quarterback recruiting in general just feels like it's arrow way up right now.
Yeah, and we've talked about it, but I don't think he gets enough love. Glenn Thomas has done a really nice job. I mean, he just getting the guys.
He's a forgotten assistant coach, it feels like, on the staff.
But I mean, getting the guys who aren't Raiola to like, hey, this is what we're expecting. See all the stuff he knows. You got to know it. Let's see what you can do with it. And I think TJ Lateef has taken to that challenge, and that's really helped him. And so, but back to your main point. I mean, this is the ultimate DR game. I mean, this is, he had the year of experience. He's built all off season for this. We've talked about the pre-snap work he's done and getting Nebraska in the right play. When I was growing up, NBA on NBC used to tease their games like Jordan and the Bulls versus Malone and the Jazz. That was it. And there is a little bit of, even though you don't want it to be that as a coach, there's a little bit of that Ryle and the Huskers, Underwood and Michigan, and you've got a year advantage with the guy that you hope has that one or two more plays or that little bit more knowledge in his back pocket in this game that helps you get over the top.
Yeah, right or wrong, this is the sort of game where if Dylan Raiola can come out and play well, like then on those lists for 2026, he's going to be in the top 10 as a quarterback returning. Like it's just, he needs to kind of prove in this sort of environment against a team where people regard as good. And Michigan's ranked in the top 25. And I think it's more similar to last year's Michigan than 2 years ago. Certainly the team that won the national title, but it still would be a quality win. It would probably be the best win of his career should Nebraska pull it off and if he can play well in it. And so there's a lot of potential referendums that can come out of this game. It's also important to recognize it's just 1/12 of the schedule.
Yes.
Like I think we're really guilty of this in the media. I think the fan base is guilty of it. You don't need to build, like, the season won't end whether Nebraska wins or loses on Saturday. Like they have to continue and they'll have their bye week and then you get Michigan State and then you're going on the road for a little while. Like there are going to be new challenges and there's going to be new obstacles and new goalposts that are going to get moved. But it's a big moment on Saturday, and I'm curious how they're going to come out and play it. Yeah, number 15 especially.
That's an actual rational viewpoint.
Sorry to bring such a thing to this podcast. I won't be doing it for the Hypecast on Thursday. I promise people.
No, I mean that's absolutely right. That's like how people should respond to this game. What I'm thinking of is the drive-by people who are, they don't watch the Huskers every week. That unfortunately, this is an overreaction game about the quarterback and the Nebraska program for anybody that's outside our bubble. And we'll do plenty of overreacting inside our bubble. Don't get me wrong. But especially outside, there's that feeling like this is Nebraska always slips on the banana peel. This is, all that stuff. And so they're going to tune in. And some of the people have been skeptics of Raiola. If he has an average or off day, they're going to use it as validation for that. So that's the kind of game it is. And it's kind of unfortunate that it's like that. But that's sort of sports in 2025, right? It's that here's a marquee game. Here are your two marquee players. And then turn the temperature up on your hottest take now about the 60 minutes you just saw.
Well, and that's the thing with college football and the NFL. There's a long lead time between games. So all you have is to react to that game for an entire week until the next one comes around. And then in Nebraska's case, it's a bye week. So, if they come out and they don't play particularly well, it's going to be 2 straight weeks of, all right, is this who we thought they would be? Shouldn't they be better than this at this point? Is Matt Rule ever going to get him over the hump? Is Dylan Raiola a good enough quarterback for this? Blah, 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 blah. So I can already envision that. And that's just going to comes with the territory. At the same time, you have the opportunity to spin that narrative on its head. You come out and you play well. You beat a Michigan team that, again, a solid football program, and you establish yourself in the Big Ten. This is some of it for me is not even the national conversation. It's to tell the other people in your conference, hey, we're not just this team that has smoke blown up our ass every year. It's some sleeping giant. We can actually win football games. Part of the whole losing to Iowa every year and losing close and inexplicably stupid fashion that gets annoying is that it sort of destroys the credibility that Nebraska is actually a team that sits in the middle of the Big Ten. We know they're not upper echelon, but I feel pretty confident that they're not hanging out there with Purdue right now either. Yeah. And so they have an opportunity to prove we belong in this. We actually belong in the conversation. We want to be talked about with Illinois and USC as teams 4 and 5 in the conference. If that's true, then you need to be able to show up on Saturday and win that football game, or at the very least prove that you belong in the football game. Certainly not an Indiana moment from a year ago.
Yep, that's exactly true. And I mean, that's the beauty of this opportunity. And there's a whole streak of losses against ranked teams. I think it's at 27 now, something like that. I mean, it's a ridiculous number. So, I mean, there's some things you could put to bed, and they, like last year, you marked off one box and it didn't mean a lot to some people, but I know it did to Rule and the guys over there. Hey, you got to a bowl game, you won the bowl game. That's that. Let's go on and do the next thing. And this is that natural progression here, or a chance to do that in a setting like this. And I think, man, you nailed your point. That was a great setup for this game. You should have saved that for the Hypecast almost, because that's what it's about in a big way. It's not just nationally. To me, it's as much the regional or the conference part of it, of just Nebraska came into this league how many ever years ago and was supposed to be a big dog. They kind of shrunk for a while, and people sometimes I think act like this isn't a big time program still that puts as much resources into it as Michigan and other schools do, and has as much fervor about it, if not more than those schools do. And you got to go make it pay now, make it count, cash out. So that's the chance. And also I'm just excited, Schaefer, that it's I get caught up as a college football guy in certain windows, and the fact that this is on CBS at 2:30 and Nessler and Danielson on the call and all that stuff, it adds to it. It's a perfect fall football game, Nebraska, Michigan on those airwaves, and hopefully the Huskers show up for the moment.
Yeah, it feels like it matters. It's there hasn't been a lot of games like that for Nebraska here recently. And maybe the last time where it kind of had that sort of feeling was the last time that Michigan came to town. And well, not the last time. We don't want to talk about 23, but in 21, I mean, that day had that kind of feel hey, this is an important game. This is a Nebraska team that thinks that they can be something. And that team never got out of the, close loss thing, but they played Michigan really hard that day, and they had an opportunity to win that game. And they had guys that stepped up. And when we go through all of this, there's going to be someone that isn't mentioned or hasn't been talked about as much that is going to need to provide a critical play. And have they, has the training and everything that they've done to this point under Matt Rule and this staff put them in a position that they can make that play when they're called upon? that's what we're going to find out on Saturday when these teams meet up. The one thing, Brian, that I feel really good about with this Nebraska team that, hasn't been there the last couple of years, I have a feeling that they can make special teams plays that are winning plays, and they can make special teams plays that are the simple, easy play and the correct play, and that they also can have guys that can be difference makers. Like I think that if Kyle Kinana needs to put one between the uprights to kick off the scoring for a 47-yard field goal, and there's a little bit of pressure just to make sure you get points out of the drive, I feel like he can do that. I think Archie Wilson can pin somebody when Nebraska has that opportunity because the drive stalls out. I think they have the ability on their punt coverage now to just not give away 15 free yards, and let a team get out from there. So there's just a lot of things that they haven't been able to do while they played in these kind of environments that I think are going to feel simple almost at this point. Maybe I'm putting a little too much confidence in it through 3 games, but I do think that's a real thing that's going to help this team.
No, I think it's a real possibility. And I started off with the whole thing about like waving your hand, taking it at the 25. And I don't know that Nebraska is going to do that, but I make that point to just say, like, this is the type of game where like 5 to 10 yards can mean so much. Like, so you do have to be savvy back there. You've got to secure the ball. You've also got to take the yards when they're there. It could come down to like an Archie Wilson. You have a drive that stalls out. Everyone's kind of disappointed in the stadium. You're at midfield. You don't pay it off, but Archie comes in and he puts them at the 5-yard line. Then can your defense back that up with a 3 and out? Those type of sequences are the very specific things. Like when we go back on Sunday morning and you're having the side conversation, it'll be like something like that on either side where one team executes that formula right. And it's a difference, and so that's where it is. It doesn't have to be in a game like this. Ja'Cory, it'll be awesome if it was, but it doesn't have to be Ja'Cory Barney going 65 yards on a punt return. It can be like that play where you nailed them at the 8-yard line, you got the 3 and out, then you punched it in on the next thing. That can be it. So I do think they have the right coaching to do it. I think also, even though we are fans of waving the hand on kick returns and stuff like that, I think the MO that Mike Eckler has instilled in these guys is we're going to be aggressive. We're not going to say what if out there. We're going to go for stuff. And if that overweighs what I'm saying about strategy on a particular thing, I prefer what Eckler's trying to get across to those guys overall, and hopefully that pays off here.
Yeah, I'm just excited we're here. It felt like you had that big game with Cincinnati right off the bat, and you kind of Nebraska gets through it, ekes it out, if you will. And then you sort of exhale, and they have a couple games where they go and they play well against Akron and Houston Christian, and they put up a bunch of points, but it doesn't really mean anything. And now we're into this game against Michigan, and Michigan might be a 6-6 team. Like, that's the thing. Like, this isn't necessarily destined to be a win that you look at the end of the year and you're like, wow, they beat an incredible Michigan team. What a game in Lincoln. But it is the measuring stick, and it's an opportunity to prove that this program is headed in a different direction than kind of where it's been for the last decade. And so it feels good that we're here. It feels good that it's going to be on a CBS kickoff at 2:30 on a Saturday. It feels good that it's in a Memorial Stadium too. Like, I want to see what that stadium looks like with some juice and some energy, and hopefully some of the people that made the trip down to Arrowhead or are from the Kansas City area bring that kind of fire and enthusiasm to what can be a little bit of a library sometimes, a Memorial Stadium.
It can be, but not. Nebraska's, I actually think that place is underrated when it's like one of these games, if Nebraska gives them the opportunity early.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Colorado game is the greatest example of it, because that was like, I mean, Colorado came into that game and they were basically entering a lion's den with how the fans were. Miami 2014, same thing.
There is sort of this idea sometimes it's out there that it's got to be a night game to have the juice, and I don't think that's the case, especially 2:30. You're getting closer to that. There's going to be a lot of literal juice consumed before then.
Gin and juice, is that what you're saying?
Something like that. And one of the loudest games I honestly think the loudest I've ever heard that stadium was the last 2 minutes of Nebraska-Oregon in 2016.
You think that's the loudest? Interesting.
in the last 2 minutes. Yeah. When Oregon had the ball after Tommy Armstrong scored, it was unbelievable in there. It's up there. There's probably a number one list of like 25 games, but it's near there. But point being, that was a 2:30 kickoff, and that one had the energy, and I think this one can be similar in that vein, sort of a September game. I haven't looked what the temperature is going to be yet. What are we looking at here?
I think it's mid-70s. I think it's just a nice mid-70s.
This could be perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, high of 82 right now, it says on my phone, but you're right. That'll be like 70s by like late in the game, dust getting near. It's perfect.
I like it. You know what else is perfect? The greatest boxer in the world today is going to be coming out with his new belt, and there's 0% chance Bud Crawford is not involved in some capacity on Saturday.
Yeah, I would think so. That's something too. I mean, that adds a little layer to it when you walk out with the greatest in the world holding up that thing. If that happens, you would hope it does. But I went back and rewatched before his fight the pep talk he gave the guys the night before the Colorado game.
It was good. It was really good.
It was awesome. It was because he actually keeps the same tone of voice the entire time. Like, he doesn't build it up, but the words he says are like so powerful. Like you said, I don't care who their daddy is about Deion's team. And I was like, man, that was freaking good. I forgot how good that was.
My favorite line in that entire thing was about how he represents, like, they represent him now and he doesn't lose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was such a, I don't know, in the moment of him saying that, like, an awesome, awesome line. And he backs it up. He doesn't lose. And I hope if he talks to him again, he just talks about how he took on Canelo Alvarez, knew he needed to be the aggressor, and went and did it right away. He didn't wait for the game to come to him. He didn't wait for the fight to come to him. He went after him right away. And I think that's the attitude Nebraska needs. Go after Michigan, put them on their heels, let them be rocked for once, and then play from that.
The other thing he did, what you can use all of these for analogies or for your team, is we all thought he was dominating the fight, I think. And then you looked at the judges' scorecards, and it was like even on two of the judges' cards after 10 rounds somehow. But
somehow it's the right word there.
Yeah, we think, and Crawford in his corner probably thought, we're winning this fight 7-3 or whatever, at this point. And even Rule said it like in the 12th round. I'm like, you didn't want him to take that one hit that ends the day for you after you've been so great. But what I loved is, and this is for Nebraska football, to your point, like, he did actually stay on the attack into the 12th round, which apparently ended up mattering to a couple of judges. And so that's what Nebraska's got to do too. It's not just early. Like, if you do get up, don't rest on your laurels. Like, go for that kill shot. And that's where you'd love to see this Husker football program really show its maturity. If they were so fortunate to grab the lead Saturday, do you have that sort of Bud mentality of stepping on their throat in that moment? We'll see.
Yeah, well, we will certainly see. It's great that it's here. It's great to kind of be into these conversations versus some of the other ones that we've had so far. And there's going to be plenty of conversations like this. It's just Tuesday. We got plenty of build up here, and you can find it all at Husker247. And of course, Husker247 daily. We've got daily content for you, 10 a.m., 10 minutes there. We'll have the Hypecast that'll be coming out. So lots of stuff. And of course, as always, check out the website. We got plenty of stuff there. Join the message board. The conversation is good right now. Dive into it. Nebraska football, it's looking good right now. Will it continue to look good through the Michigan game? We're going to find out as we continue. So for Brian Christopherson, I'm Mike Schaefer. We're Husker247. We'll catch you next time.